everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the HoopsWire Live 330 to go NBA show. We're still going. And guess what? Happy Summer League. Here we are. The entire NBA is in Las Vegas for, watching guys who may or may not become contributors this next season. Prospects, draft hopefuls. In the Cavaliers' case, first round pick Jaylon Tyson, going to be fans' first look at him this weekend. So this is the weekend. If you're not real familiar with it, if you're not a diehard, when all 30 teams send a summer roster to Las Vegas, usually an assistant coach is coaching the team, and they all play against each other in really what is a tournament. And guess who's the defending champions of the Summer League? The Cleveland Cavaliers. So they have a different roster this year. No Sam Merrill, who had a huge role for them last year. But, the purpose of the Summer League is to help guys get ready for the season and see if they can become regular contributors. And guess what? Sam Merrill, who was very good in the Summer League for the Cavs last year, is coming off a career season in the NBA. So, this is something that could maybe spurn careers. And the Cavs are certainly looking for some help here. So, obviously, Jaylon Tyson, in the Cavs case, is a name to watch, number 20 overall pick. You're not expecting him to be a franchise-changing player, but you're hopeful he's somebody who can contribute right away, 6'5" wing. Cavs have a need for wings right now. Depending on what happens with Isaac Okoro, and we'll get into that in a minute. Obviously, Craig Porter Jr., who had a fantastic run when healthy for the Cavs, the point guard, was undrafted, right? Remember, nobody took him in the draft. The Cavs just happened to sign him for their Summer League team last year. He was a rookie, had a fabulous rookie season when he got the opportunity as a backup point guard, and really was a guy who kind of made his name and gave Cavs fans some hope during the Summer League last year. So, there's you don't want to read too much into what happens in Summer League because, a lot of these players will not be in the NBA. Many of them will either be in the G League, overseas, or working at Giant Eagle in the fall. So, you can't read too much into it, but it's nice to see, hope. I guess that's what Summer League promises, is hope. And, in the case of the Cavs, look, you're looking at Craig Porter Jr., you're looking at Jaylon Tyson, you're looking at Emoni Bates, right? There's high hopes for him still. And guess what the Cavs could use and kind of what they're looking for on the trade market? A 6'9" perimeter-oriented type of player. And that's what Emoni Bates is. And really, came to the Cavs, even though he's the number 49 overall pick last year, came to the Cavs with high hopes. Played in 15 games for the Cavs. Almost all 15 of those appearances were garbage time. But really did well in the G League. And, he's added 26 pounds since the start of last season. And that's what the Cavs were kind of hoping for him, is to get stronger and be able to absorb contact in the lane. They want to see him handling the ball more, driving more, and not really just, he kind of looked last season, at least in the NBA games, and this is inexperience, more like just a 6'9" perimeter shooter, and he wasn't really knocking down his shots. In the G League, he looked like Kevin Durant. So, the Cavs are hoping they can find something in between that, and that, theoretically will come with experience for Bates. So, still one of my favorite guys to talk to on the Cavs, just 20 years old still. And, look, he's a guy with high upside. We all knew that. Can Summer League help push him to the next level? Those are things we're going to be watching, right? So there are those things. Obviously, Pete Nance, another player who's on the summer roster, famous Cavalier name, right? And going to see what he can do. Also had some run with the Cavs, very little, usually during garbage time, but looked good in the G League. One name that's not there is Isaiah Mobley, Evan Mobley's little brother, who, the Cavs did not extend a qualifying offer to him. He could still be back in some way. I don't think the teams, frankly, at this point are rushing to sign Isaiah Mobley as a free agent, so he could very well be back with the Cleveland Charge, just not on a two-way contract. I don't know. I don't know the situation there. The Cavs may have moved on. I don't know. So that's just something we're going to, find out. I don't think that Cavs fans at this point are going to be too disappointed or thrilled one way or the other, unless Isaiah Mobley finally has a breakout season. And he was great last year in the Summer League. I believe MVP, right? So their upside is there. He's got size. The Cavs are desperate right now for size. They've got Jared Allen. They've got Evan Mobley. Who else? Tristan Thompson won't be back. Damian Jones won't be back. I'm assuming so. So the Cavs have to figure out now. Maybe those players aren't going to emerge from Summer League, but maybe they are. These big guys who are going to be a regular part of the roster next season. So there's a lot to be said for Summer League when it comes to scouting and hoping that you find somebody that can just, be next year's Sam Merrill, Craig Porter Jr., or maybe even better than that. Players emerge out of nowhere all the time. And despite all the buzz around the NBA and the fact that every general manager and scout is there, there's really not, I guess there's really not a lot to live up to the hype of Summer League. It's really just an opportunity for teams and fans to get a look at these first round picks. And as the case has been so far, Bronny James, who has played 2 games because there was a California Classic, I believe it was called. And the Lakers summer team played 3 games. Bronny sat out 1 with a knee issue, played 2, looked solid. I think that Bronny is what everybody expected him to be right now, which is a guy who needs development. And the Lakers know that. He's going to spend the majority of his time in the G League, maybe run on the floor with LeBron one time early in the regular season, and then they will let him develop down in the G League. That seems to be the plan, and that makes sense. But, to me, Bronny's been just fine. He's not been he's not going to score a lot right now. He forces nothing in the games that I've watched. He's not a guy who's going to go out there and heave up shots. He's not a selfish player. I think that, yes, is the coverage of him nauseating? It's beyond nauseating. I would say that ESPN's coverage of Bronny James to this point has been, it's been unprofessional. It's a little bit disturbing because anytime the kid makes a move, they're plastering it all over social media. One of my buddies texted me, he said, when did ESPN's social media account become run by a 15-year-old? Because that's what this is. And that's, of course, no fault of Bronny James at all. He's just going out there and playing his game. Like I've said on previous shows, I've met him a few times, a wonderful young man. LeBron and his wife, Savannah, have done a wonderful job raising those kids because they all couldn't be nicer, more respectful kids. And they have every reason really not to be, but they are. So, and Bryce is the same. And we're going to be talking about Bryce on this show someday, I'm sure, too. People say his upside's even higher than Bronny. So, but we won't get too far into that right now because here I am complaining about ESPN's coverage and it's dominated the show so far. But what I will say about, Bronny James is, when I look at him, when I look at players like Dalton Connect, the Lakers' first-round pick, when I watch those guys, and we're going to see that with the Cavs, there's just something about the way that they move and, their fundamentals. They're just different than a lot of other players. They look like potentially decent NBA players. I think Bronny's ceiling's probably pretty low. And that's not an insult, but that's, maybe I'll be wrong, but just watching him, I think he's probably an 8th or 9th man at the NBA level at best. But I think there is an upside there where it's, 6th man coming off the bench, providing good defense in the backcourt and knocking down a couple shots. And you know what? That's great. When you have no reason to be an NBA player because you have all the money you need, or at least your family does, to me, that says a lot about Bronny, and it says a lot of positive things about him, that this is the road he's choosing. So I think that's kind of cool. We'll move on now, though. I'm going to have a sip of my mid-afternoon coffee. For those of you who are watching it live, yes, I drink coffee probably all the way till about 4 o'clock. Even when it's 90 degrees out like it is right now, I think. I stepped outside at like 8 o'clock, and I haven't been back outside since, so I don't know what the temperature is. Anyway, on to the Cavs Summer League. I think that, the simple eye test will show you what certain players can do and what their upside is. There's no need to get into that. The goal here to me, if I'm the Cavaliers, here are 2 things I'm really, really looking at. Number one is, can we get a win? I was going to say big guy, but let's say win. Is Jaylon Tyson going to be able to contribute this year at a level that we need him to? If you're the Cavs, this is what you're asking. Our first-round pick. Now, it's a little bit of a reach because he was the number 20 pick. At the same time, again, Craig Porter Jr. wasn't drafted, and when he got the opportunity, he contributed a lot. So, that's what you're looking at. Is this Jaylon Tyson going to be able to help us in an area of need right away? That would be number 1 for me. 1A, Emoni Bates. Where is he? What can he do for us? Is he going to take that next step? Because if, we've heard the Cavs linked to Dorian Finney-Smith. We've heard them linked to Cam Johnson, both of the Nets. Well, both are, particularly Cam Johnson, a 6'8" wing shooter that the Cavs could really use. I don't think they'll be able to get him because the Nets want picks. And I just think that's, the Cavs don't have them. They gave them all away in the Donovan Mitchell trade. So they don't really have what the Nets are looking for Cam Johnson. So can Emoni Bates develop? Does he look like a guy who could develop so that the Cavs don't have to give up assets to go out and get a 6'8", 6'9" in Bates' case, wing shooter who can knock down threes and spread the court? You're, spread out the opposing defenses and make things easier to operate for guys like Mitchell and Garland who are driving to the basket, or, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen down low. Can he help, frankly, Max Strus and the other guys get open looks from the perimeter, because the defense has to focus on the 6'8" guy who's hitting shots. So I think those are the 2 things to me that I'll be watching, and I believe that the Cavs are looking for. Can we find another wing contributor? Doesn't have to be a star. Doesn't have to be a 20-point-a-game scorer. Cavs have plenty of those, with Mitchell, presumably Garland and Mobley, and there are other guys who can get there, Karis LeVert. There are plenty of scorers. Can we get a guy who's, if you leave him open over there, anywhere around the 3-point line, other than Sam Merrill and Max Strus, it's you want a guy obviously taller than those guys. Can we have a guy out there who's going to create problems? We want another guy like that. Knock down 3 shots a game, 3 threes a game, 2 threes a game. Keep defenses honest. That's what the Cavs are looking for this offseason. Is that player on the roster, on the summer roster? Obviously a big man. You know, the Cavs need a few. You need another center. You need another power forward. Probably at least one of each, maybe 2 of each. You know, we've seen, look, now the lineup looks great. The whole idea of the core 4 looks great. And, you know, you got a new coach in Kenny Atkinson. But guess what? We get in the middle of the NBA season where, like, so-and-so's out for 6 weeks. You know, injuries happen. So you don't just want a serviceable guy, right? You want a guy who can fill in and do some of the things for somebody who's injured, okay? And I'm talking about the front court there. Back court, like I said, Craig Porter Jr. had a nice season. I think you want to find, and you're probably not going to find this in Summer League, but I know that the Cavs are on the lookout for a veteran backup point guard. Is that type of guy available at the right price? And how do we get him? That's something that they're exploring. Not going to have a lot of money for free agency, so it probably have to be a minimum deal guy, but that's okay. You know, if you find the right veteran who fits, it can take you places. Nobody thought when the Cavs made that trade for Ricky Rubio that Ricky Rubio was going to come in and have a career season in the very short stint that he played with the Cavs, but he was a great fit. So, you know, those are the things they're looking at. Obviously, the further development of Craig Porter Jr., but they really want to get some of these veteran guys at these positions. Center, power forward, these are all obviously reserves. And then, you know, backup point guard, and really want that extra wing shooter that, you know, you were kind of hoping that George Niang would become, and he was streaky. And I know some of you will say he wasn't even that good, but I think those are the things that the Cavs are looking for. Somebody asked me the other day, speaking of which, core 4, Evan Mobley, contract extension. It's going to happen. The sides have talked. He's going to get one. They're just ironing out the details. I would suspect by August we'll see it finalized. So they'll get there eventually. You want to get it done by August because August is when the entire NBA goes on vacation, except for us fine folks at HoopsWire.com. We continue to roll right through the NFL Hall of Fame game. We just keep going. Even on Browns Sundays, I will break for the Browns game, and I'm not to be talked to or interrupted while I'm watching. You can interrupt me all you want while I'm working, but you can't do it during a Browns game. It is 100% laser focus and usually lots of anger and yelling at the television and yelling at anyone else around me, not through any fault of their own, but because of my beloved Cleveland Browns. So I guess my whole point in that was, you know, in August, things really slow down for the NBA. GMs, coaches, players, everybody's players are pretty much already kind of on vacation, but they're also putting in work. But they're taking that last probably 4 weeks before the season, before training camp gets geared up at the end of September, is usually when media day is. The first week of October is training camp. So there's a period there where the NBA just goes silent. Football takes over the world. I love it when that happens. I love the start of football season. The only thing I don't like about football season is it means back to school. And even though I don't go to school anymore, I still have those bad memories of, oh yeah, football season starting, but it means I've got to go back to school for, how long were we there? Like 8:15 to 3:15? too long. And I'm sorry for you kids who are watching, at least for your parents, that I'm being such a terrible influence. There are so many great things about school, but I was not a fan, and it was not a fan of me, I would say. But anyway, so as far as the Cavaliers go, Evan Mobley, I think that's a formality. The big news, or the big thing to watch, will be Isaac Okoro. I'm looking at Isaac Okoro potentially as the odd man out going into next season. I think there could be changes, once we get into the season, once the Cavs evaluate everything under Kenny Atkinson. But I think everything else would pretty much be the same unless they can get Dorian Finney-Smith or a Cam Johnson. I don't think look, Isaac Okoro for Dorian Finney-Smith, that's not an upgrade. That's the same player. Dorian Finney-Smith may be slightly more reliable from the perimeter, but not enough to make a trade straight up. I don't see where that would benefit the Cavs. Other than Dorian Finney-Smith from the Nets has a little bit more size, but to me, it's just mish for mash. Why make that deal other than you just don't think you're going to be able to sign Isaac Okoro? And I don't think the Cavs have had that conversation, by the way, but I've seen it thrown about to me on the internet, and I'm just like, why? That's not an upgrade. Dorian Finney-Smith for Isaac Okoro at best is a draw. So, I just think that that's not a deal. But there is a lot of things to think about here with Isaac Okoro. And he's a restricted free agent. There's really been very little dialogue, some, but very little conversations between the Cavs and Isaac Okoro's camp. But, you don't have to talk much. You just say, here's what we're thinking in terms of an offer. The bottom line is Okoro is a restricted free agent, which means another team makes him an offer, the Cavs can match it and keep him. So, the ball is kind of in the Cavs' court right now when it comes to negotiations, because if nobody else is offering Isaac Okoro, any type of deal whatsoever, then perhaps, maybe his value is going to be closer to what the Cavs offer him. I hate to get in the middle of contract negotiations, but I'm just saying that's the way things are viewed. Is Isaac Okoro the type of player who's going to command the type of money his representatives are seeking in what now is the open market for him? So, I do think, I would say it's probably 50-50 that Okoro is back. I could see a sign and trade situation where the Cavs move on. They probably don't get a ton in return. Maybe they get some picks. They would probably, they would have to take back some salary. I don't know that it would be, it definitely wouldn't be a splashy move. Well, I shouldn't say definitely. It'd be surprising if the Cavs got an upgrade back from Okoro. I think, their comfort in moving him would be seeing that, somebody else has stepped forward. Jaylon Tyson has stepped forward. Emoni Bates, where Max Strus is going to get more minutes and Karis LeVert's going to fill. So I think that there are a lot of things working against Isaac Okoro coming back, even though he's coming off a career season. He was okay in the playoffs. And I think that's probably what's impacting these negotiations. Regular season, fantastic. I've always been an Okoro doubter until this past season. And I watched him this past season. And yeah, he's never going to be a 20-point-a-game scorer, and that's okay. Again, the Cavs don't need another one of those. But he was, he did all the little things well. He defended great, and really got after it. So I think there's a lot of positives about Isaac Okoro. That said, he's replaceable. And in today's NBA, You've got to be able to knock down that corner three when you play Okoro's position. He got better at it. He improved, but, I just don't know that the confidence is there all the way or enough for the Cavs to say, we're going to go right up against this, salary cap, second tax apron, and limit our moves to re-sign Isaac Okoro. They might, but I just don't know that they're there. So, I think there's a lot to be determined there with Isaac Okoro. And I mentioned this on previous shows. Watch out for the Detroit Pistons, because JB Bicker's staff is the coach there. And I think that there's, they have that bond, coaching player bond. And like I said on last week's show, it reminds me of the time Lenny Wilkens was coach of the Cavs and then left for the Atlanta Hawks. Well, they parted ways with the Cavs, and the Atlanta Hawks immediately hired him, much like the Pistons did with J.B. Bicker's staff. And Craig Elo went with, as a free agent, wasn't a restricted free agent, but was a free agent, ended up going to the Atlanta Hawks with his coach in Lenny Wilkens. I could see the same thing playing out with the Detroit Pistons, and perhaps some sort of sign and trade arrangement where the Cavs really aren't getting back much. They're not going to get a starter back. They would get a bench player back, but you never know. I mean, Detroit now, clearly the Pistons, after losing 28 straight and snapping the Cavs record last season with J.B. Bicker, Trajan Langdon, former Cavs guard, who's now running the Pistons, has gone out and gotten veterans, right? Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris. They just signed Paul Reed, or claimed Paul Reed off of waivers. He was a nice player, nice backup big man for the Sixers. So they've added a lot of veteran talent to that roster. And Isaac Okoro, frankly, would fit in very well in Detroit. So that is somebody that I would keep an eye out for should the Cavs decide, we're going to move on from Isaac Okoro. Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com, I listened to him on a podcast. One of my kids' favorite NBA writers, by the way, that I've been informed. But Chris said on a podcast a few weeks ago on the Hoops Hype podcast that he said it sometimes feels like the Cavs have outgrown Isaac Okoro. And I thought that was very well said. And it does feel like that a little bit. So I know I'm rambling on about Isaac Okoro, and many of you probably aren't that concerned about it, but he was, a key member of the rotation. He was a former lottery pick, and he was somebody that the Cavs had high hopes for, but he became really a rotational player, sometimes starter. It felt like, to me, the first 3 years, the Cavs were really forcing it with him, which was maybe he wasn't qualified to start sometimes, but they were throwing him out there anyway because they wanted to justify taking him at number 5 and saying, at least in their own mind, see, he's a starter. He's a sometimes starter when somebody else is hurt. I don't think he's a starter on a team that's going to the finals. So, something to figure out there with a key member of the franchise since he's been drafted, I guess it's been 4 years ago now. That, to me, is the biggest offseason question mark. The other big offseason question mark for the Cavaliers is, can we find that other guy, that other wing via Summer League? That's an offseason question. It's not, it's not something that you have to figure out right now. But it's, again, the names that I mentioned before, are there going to be guys who emerge that can help us right now? Because there are some areas that the Cavs need help in that are pretty obvious. I think a veteran backup point guard, really, as much as you like Craig Porter Jr. and you want to see him out there and getting his time, you still want a veteran backup point guard again, because there's injuries and those other things that take place during the season. So I've really, really today gone hard for the Cavs diehards. those of you who watch the show for pure entertainment value and to hear me ramble on, which I get the sense is not a whole lot, but I'm sorry that I haven't gone down that road today. Had a little bit of a sore throat. I've not been well all week. I'm just finally coming around. So that's why I thought I'm just going to try to not be so funny, my normally, boyish, charming self this week, and stick to straight basketball. So, look, if you're going to watch these summer league games and you're a Cavs fan, I wouldn't get too worked up about who looks great and who doesn't, because last year Victor Wembanyama did not look that great. The number 1 overall pick with the Spurs did not look all that great during summer league. I'm pretty sure Derrick Rose, a one-time NBA MVP, looked terrible in summer league. That would have been back in 2011, somewhere in there, maybe even before that. Yeah, because Kyrie Irving was Derrick Rose was MVP in 2011. I can't remember when he was drafted, but my point is that those guys, there are a lot of guys who looked bad in the summer league and got it figured out right away as soon as they got to the NBA. Derrick Rose being an example. I think Victor Wembanyama is pretty much an example. And, sometimes it's tough to play with guys as teammates who aren't going to be NBA players. NBA players will bring out best in guys, right? Non-NBA players, if sometimes you play to the level of your competition. That's why I try when I play now today to only play with great players, because then if I mess up, it's no big deal. They cover for me, which is often. But so I think there's a lot of things there to watch with the Cavs, but not too much to get too worked up about. I always love summer. I just love watching guys who, first round picks. I try to watch as much as I can, as opposed to just Cavaliers. HoopsWire, we're obviously covering the entire NBA. Our Cavs coverage still is the most read, I believe, most days. So I try to put a little bit of emphasis on them, but I look at it like I'm a national NBA writer now out of Cleveland. But I like watching all the first round picks and writing on all of them from all of the teams, just to see, and I also like to see guys that, like Drew Timme from Gonzaga, who never got drafted, played for the Sacramento Kings. I believe he's still playing for the Sacramento Kings. Was a great college player. I like watching those guys. I've really liked this Maxwell Lewis from the Lakers. Went to Pepperdine, was a great college player. Not getting any buzz because they got Bronny there and Dalton Connect there, who are 2 big name rookies. But this Maxwell Lewis from Pepperdine was with the Lakers last season, has looked fantastic in summer league. So I like kind of watching those former college stars or guys that I watched in college and seeing how they're developing in the summer league. So now that we've figured out what I enjoy, if you have any questions, by the way, I know some of you try to connect with me on Facebook, and that's always great. I do read all the comments, or on Twitter, or X as it's called now. I do read most of my notifications there. So a lot of times on that platform, there's so much that I just don't have a chance to go through it all. And sometimes some of the responses I see, I'm glad that I don't go through it all. But you can always email me. Sometime I'll give Steve my email to pop up there. I always respond to emails. And that's just my name, samamico@gmail.com. Email me. We'll talk hoops there. So anyway, with that in mind, there's been plenty still to come for the Cavs off season. We'll keep bringing it here on the HoopsWire 330 to go show. Yes, our times have been random, and I'm totally to blame for that. But, I know a lot of you watch, not necessarily live, but on YouTube. So I guess without further ado, I will say goodbye right now. And thanks for joining, and we will talk to you next week. See you then.